What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 20th episode of the Envision Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Brad's Gaming, and as always, I'm joined by Clownish Joe
Hello, everyone.
and Triple Bravo.
Howdy, folks.
So, before we continue our horror month series for our podcasting, I wanted to bring up, obviously, because it's near and dear to my heart, some Diablo Blizzard news. Mainly, just wanted to get some ideas of what you guys feel of the situation, which you might not know. I gave you a little bit of a teaser beforehand, but um, so basically, long story short, the server issues continued onward after we all kind of stopped playing, and essentially, you try to log in the mornings mainly, so it didn't really affect people in the United States. It's mainly like in Europe and whatnot, and you basically just couldn't log in. So everybody's complaining every time on Reddit. It was like 8, 9 days in a row, and then finally Blizzard came out and they're like, "Hey, this is what it is. We're being transparent." Basically, we had way more people than we expected due to consoles. The numbers kept rising after the first day. Long story short, we have our reasonings as to why it's bad and why we can't keep up with the servers, but we're working on it. It's old code is, long story short, a lot of what they're saying. And so what they did was they created a queue for the Diablo 2 servers. So once they patched the game, you could log in and you'd be met with like, oh, you're 110th in line. But the problem is the first day it was released, some people were in queue for like 6 hours to get into the game. It was like some absurd thing. So I didn't experience a lot of this. I would get in the queue. It would take maybe at most like 5 minutes for a lot of it. But here's the big kicker to me. So they released this patch that was mandatory to get online now with this queue system. And what they didn't do, and essentially their fix, is to not patch the console versions, which in turn makes it so if you owned a copy of Diablo 2 and you just bought it when that patch went live, it was impossible for you to even play the game on single player because you couldn't get to the point to authenticate to the Battle.net servers to like log in or anything. And if you played Battle.net, you couldn't get onto Battle.net at all either. This was the biggest I don't know, mess up I can remember in a long time in video games in general. I think Cyberpunk obviously was pretty similar to this. I think that's probably the last thing. And then the other thing I can remember too is like Batman Arkham Knight on PC, because the game was so bad on PC they pulled it off of Steam. So yeah, I rambled enough.
I think another addition to that would be Anthem. I can't think of another game off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's more. So I want to go back. You said a lot. I'm going to comment on some of it.
Yeah.
So first off, the stroking the ego of the community and saying, "Oh, we had so many people wanting to play this game and we didn't see this coming." Yes, you did. That's a horrible excuse. In today's time, there should not be an excuse where you run out of server space or you don't account for people coming in. I will give them a little asterisk on this one because they are using quote-unquote old code, which I'll get to in a moment. So perhaps their old networking code doesn't allow them to expand server space or whatever, but it's literally allocating server space. I still, conspiracy hat time, believe that companies purposely do not provide the server space that they see coming for new releases to do two things. Save money, because they know that the initial hype is going to die down quickly, maybe within a couple days or weeks. And second, so they can write those articles that say, "Oh, wow, our game maxed out all the servers and crashed the game. That's crazy. You should go check out this game. Point, 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 click, click, click." And then on the note of old code, it's old code, okay? New code is harder, old code is archaic. There's no reason why these new programmers should not be able to see the problems with the old code that have been around for 20 years or even the newest patches a couple years ago and fix these issues. The whole queue time thing is in my mind ridiculous. And the fact that they restrict people from even playing on consoles, or maybe, you said people purchasing the game wouldn't even be able to play like that. Come on, Blizzard. Like, how much do you hate your community where you want to do this? This is pretty bad. And I only play like a couple of Blizzard games and not even that much. So I guess I'm kind of glad that I don't. But it seems like they're bread and butter, the way that they
Mm-hmm.
kind of do things.
Yeah. Just really quickly, also, I forgot I want to add to this. So they actually won back a lot of people's respect originally when they released that statement, because before they released that Q patch, because they were being so transparent, they were like, "Oh wow, this is better than what we expected," and then boom, that patch came out and instantly tanked everything that they earned back plus more. Um, it, yeah, it's pretty wild. And the weird thing too is the old game didn't have this issue. I understand it wasn't as popular. It had some issues early on, but like we're talking about like day one issues. Like this game's 20 years old.
Yeah, I also have one more thing where the always online gaming these days really bothers me. There's just certain things that you shouldn't have to have always online. If I go buy a physical copy of Diablo 2, a Resurrected, I should just be able to play offline. I don't need to authenticate my account. I don't need to connect something so you can force people to have to go back and buy a new game in 10 years whenever somebody wants to buy and play this old game again. Like, it's just ridiculous. And whenever, well, if infrastructures like fail or you lose internet connectivity, your everybody's investments are going to be gone. And Brad's going to be over there with his PlayStation or his Xbox or whatever, playing all these physical game copies, and I'm gonna have to drive over to Brad's house because all my game copies are virtual.
Yeah, I I've just come to accept the game's launch, and they're just absolutely awful, always at this point. Um, we played, like, literally at release time, got what, maybe half hour, 45 minutes, and then everything went to crap on us. So it's just like, I don't know. It's every game that comes out seems to do the same thing. Like Bravo said, they definitely you think after this many screw ups, they'd be like, maybe we need to, overcompensate for servers for a month and then we can start dialing back. Because I feel like if a game launches and doesn't have problems now, it would be news everywhere because it doesn't happen.
Yeah, you're right.
And we're talking about like other flopped games that have come out over the past few years. I mean, Anthem obviously was a major disaster. No Man's Sky is another one that comes to mind for me. But even games like single player games like Assassin's Creed Unity or not single player specifically, but Fallout 76, they just release incomplete crap games with dog water servers. And
Good catch there, Joseph.
yeah, and it's just I don't it's just become too much of a norm. I don't obviously like it, but I'm not surprised. It's Blizzard. And the fact that they're even reusing old code from a 20-year game, just what do they think is gonna happen? It's just laziness. There's no, like, ifs, ands, or buts about it.
So the only reason why they had to use the old code is because it's impossible to rewrite that game from scratch without it being a basically different game, because of the archaic system of how they made it. So the guys who made it before this game was released or even in talks, they were like, "What do you think the chances are that they bring, do a remaster of it?" And they're like, "It's near impossible because the game was built for this 800 by 600 resolution, So basically, if the monsters don't move outside of the screen, so like they're generated off screen, but they don't move until you see them, and that's how the pathing is. So if you create a widescreen view of it, you could just see the monster sitting there, and as like a Amazon or whatever, you could just pluck away at them without them even moving. So I don't know how they exactly did it, but they did a pretty good job for what they did. It's just too bad that the server aspect of it absolutely killed that game.
I hope to see in the future when the game dies down and they get, like the basic diehard fans, that they just release like, okay, here's your peer-to-peer connection, have a blast. Like the hype is over, just here's the old game, because I absolutely love the way Resurrected looks. I like still, Brad will be streaming it in the Discord, or I'll jump on excuse me, my voice. I'll jump on and play a quick run or something. I'm just like, this game is a painting, like every frame you could just stop and it'd just be like, oh, look at the garlic, look at the dead bodies over there. It's great.
The garlic. I think my number one ask would be just give us single player, like true single player, where we don't have to authenticate it every 30 days, because at some point something's going to happen, and they really just need to do something about that. Because I mean, obviously we'd be fine going back and playing the original game, but I mean, I don't know how it works on a Windows 11, for example. They're
Yeah,
it might not.
It's very strange to me that it's not strange, but it hurts that these corporations went down the logic train of how do we make more money, and the answer is single player games have to be authenticated, because we all know what they're doing, but it's our product, we own it, but yet you have control over it. So it sucks, because Blizzard's gonna go out of business in 10 years or 15 years or whatever, and nobody's going to be able to access these games, and some wizard with programming is going to find a way to write code to faux authenticate your games, and it'll be great. But until then, you'd be screwed.
Yeah. I want to let you know I lied completely on that.
Okay,
just had a
so
stroke.
based off of all of that and online only games, we're beating around the bush here, but it's literally the only reason is to make sure that they have control over who plays their games and to stop piracy, which still doesn't stop pirating. So give me my offline single player back, please, and thank you.
Yes.
And us as gamers still are just going to keep buying these games, so they're going to keep getting away with what they're doing, and until either a new heavy hitter comes onto the scene that just completely does everything the opposite and takes away from these other big companies, or us as consumers make a change, it's not going to change.
Yeah. Anyways, I had enough to that. I think that covers.
I've had enough of Diablo 2 as well.
Diablo,
let's move on.
I'm sick of it. Does anybody want to bring up anything else before we get into the main topic?
Blizzard sucks.
They do. And I hate that I like so many of their products.
Speaking of so many of their products, how are you guys liking Mercenaries? You've been playing it much?
Nope.
I think I've caught up to you guys.
Yeah.
I haven't played it since the first day.
Oh.
I've played it one time this week, I think, or whatever, but I just been doing other things and playing Diablo.
Yeah.
But I really do want to play a little bit more. I think Bravo actually in Discord today was talking a bit, and it does bring up a point. I really wish they brought like an endless mode to it, where you could just see how far you can get into it, because as of right now it seems like it has a great concept, but it's maybe lacking a bit in the content.
I mean, you could even have like reduced experience, but like allow you to like swap out the card that you get, like the extra ability for your different mercs. You could like swap it out anytime you wanted, or like whenever it would randomly come back up. That'd be cool. And it just gets harder and harder until you fail. And you maybe like you make it to a certain checkpoint, you get a little box or something. Like it sounds pretty easy to make, but it just give a guy something to do. You wouldn't have to go through so many menus to get to stuff. But
Yeah.
I like it. I've been using it as a like something to do as a break between
There
work.
is poopskis.
During the whole poops. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, enough about the Blizzard content.
Mm-hmm. We'll jump into our main topic of the show, which being that it's spooky month. We wanted to talk about Silent Hill. So Silent Hill being one of, if not arguably the most influential horror franchise. It's probably a good toss up between the two that we're going to cover, which is Resident Evil also. Silent Hill, I absolutely love. This is actually what I mainly focused on for my collecting. So I've dove pretty hard into it. And I started trying to stream through them a while back. I wanted to get through every single game. And I hit a wall because I think one of the games, it was Silent Hill 4, my copy at the time was like skipping, but it was my PS2. So I got like halfway through it and then I couldn't play anymore. But real quickly, maybe we can run through and talk about, experience wise with Silent Hill.
I'll go first.
Bravo. Yeah.
In the year 2006, the Silent Hill movie came out, and I watched that. And that is.
Did you watch it in 2006?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I was 15, 16. And yeah, that was it. I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't even know it was a game.
Silent Hill's pretty cool.
Silent Hill's pretty cool.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of the series. I've watched both of the movies. I've played through the first game and a good portion of the third. I've followed the series and watched playthroughs of just about all of the games outside of Shattered Memories and then Book of Memories. But I've heard Brad say nothing but things about Book of Memories that we'll get to later, I'm sure, that makes me not want to watch.
We'll talk about it.
But yeah, the first game of the series is one of my favorite games of all time. Probably my favorite, if not my second favorite horror game of all time.
The
High
first,
praise.
The first being Zelda Ocarina of Time, correct?
Greatest horror game of all time.
in Joe's opinion, of course.
Yes. And his
Also
monocle.
the greatest racing game of all time, and you race Kona in a circle.
When I race that drawbridge, baby, in the beginning, so I don't get locked out. Oh boy.
The old
Hey, this
backflip.
is a Silent Hill episode, not a Zelda episode.
Yeah. Correct.
It was spooky though, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess for my experience, I played through the first games I played through were actually 2 and 3, the HD collection, which wasn't as bad, but that I think that's coming from somebody who didn't have any perspective outside of those 2 games. They did crash and the frame rates were pretty bad, but I almost didn't realize it was. I was just like, oh, they're old games and maybe that's how they're supposed to be. Then I played obviously the PS2 versions down the road and I was like, oh wow, these are really bad. I played Silent Hill 1 a couple times. I had the memories, as I stated in a previous episode, with my buddy Tyler actually playing it. I remember at his house walking by, seeing it, and we both were scared, pretty bad from the game. I think you rented it from like a Blockbuster or something. But I think actually the first time I played it was on stream and Joe was there, and it was I loved the game. It's super fun,
I'd also loved
especially
being at the piano puzzle for a solid
piano
2
puzzle.
hours.
That was a brutal puzzle.
That's
Okay,
a
I
hard
didn't.
puzzle. You gotta learn how to play the
Yeah,
piano.
and you got to do it backwards. That's the worst
Yeah.
part. So I actually after I played, so when I was doing my streaming, I went 1, then I did 3 because 3 is a continuation of 1. Did 2 after that, and I tried 4, but as I said, it was freezing. And then a couple months later, I ended up going back and playing Homecoming and Downpour also. So those are all of the games I've played. I also played Book of Memories, as Joe said, but only a bit, which we'll get into that a little bit deeper later on. Yeah, so now that we kind of went through that stuff, let's talk about some history of Silent Hill in general. Joe, you want to take some of this?
Yes, I suppose I will. So, leading off, uh, we're not getting too deep into all of this, as you know, we could sit here and talk for hours about each individual game, and we're gonna try and keep this episode to a reasonable time frame. So it's not going to be the most in-depth review of Silent Hill, but we will touch on a few things. So, Silent Hill was originally concepted as a result of the success of the Resident Evil / Biohazard release, which, you know, redefined horror in video games and was a huge hit with Western audiences. So basically, they came together and Konami came together and were like, okay, we need to come up with a game that appeals to Western audiences. And they formed up a team, basically, of some of the misfits of the company that got dropped from other projects, or basically you're fired or you go work on this team. Team was named Team Silent. They came up with the idea of Silent Hill, and it was they made the first 4 games of Silent Hill. And Kaiichiro Toyama was the head of Team Silent, and he was massively inspired and a big fan of like the Jacob's Ladder and David Lynch. And so he took a lot of that, and you'll see a lot of impacts of these different inspirations throughout the game. And yeah, so they came up with the game and they pretty much pitched it to big boy Konami, and Konami looked at them and were just like, absolutely not. What do you think you're doing? But since Konami wasn't really the head of this team and didn't really care about them and just trying to get people out of their hair, basically, Team Silent had a lot of freedom to go about and make their own creative decisions. And then with that, they went to a con. I don't remember exactly which convention it was off the top of my head, but they did show like a little pre-rendered video demo of the game to introduce it to some more westernized fans, and it got taken with like some massive appeal to the audience. And then Konami basically was just like, all right, guys, maybe you're onto something. You know, here's a little bit more money. Let's see what we could do. And then Team Silent, you know, they pretty much went all out and did what they wanted. They really didn't have any leadership outside of Mr. Toyama. And yeah, they put together what we know as Silent Hill 1. They started development in 1996 and released in 99, if I believe I have my numbers correct.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And they, because I think Resident Evil released 2 games, and they were like releasing their third already.
Yeah.
Just pretty wild. Shows the turnover rate that they were able to do.
Yeah, I know Team Silent, I want to say it had about 24 people for the first game, 24 people. And that's all that they had to create the first game. I know they went on and had 50 people for the second game, and they didn't add too many more to their teams throughout their project lifecycle, which is pretty amazing for back then having such a small team on a
That's
game that became so popular.
Yeah, that's a, for today's standards, that's like, oh, we're a small indie team and made this game, and here you go.
Hmm.
Not big time gaming corporation.
One of so one of my favorite things that I heard from doing the research and whatnot was about Takayoshi Sato, I believe that's how you say his name. Um, and he was the guy that made all the cutscenes. So he did it by himself. And if I'm remembering correctly, because I don't have any notes about this, but I'm remembering from watching stuff. So the guy, he basically took the challenge on to do this to like prove himself to the company that he was worthy of a project of his own and whatnot. And essentially he would sleep at the office because he realized that he could render the CGI movies and make everything look better if everybody was home and he could use every single computer in the office. So this guy
Oh
was
wow, like using all the computers to like render different scenes, or maybe
yeah,
just like,
so it could be faster because
wow.
something that would take all day he could just do that much more work by using all the processing power from every computer rather than just one. So he was working, I guess you could say, smart. Um, and I think that's probably why the cutscenes honestly for PS1 standards are pretty good. Like, I feel like they are.
I think they
Um,
beyond what PS1 should be known for, especially.
yeah.
I feel like they're definitely PS2 era worthy cutscenes.
Mm, yeah. So it's like they actually looked like the human faces like actually looked human. Like things looked correct. It didn't look wild. So um I just thought that was a fun little tidbit that information.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like Joe said, I mean, we got a lot of games to kind of cover, so we're not going to be doing too deep of a dive. But how did you guys? I don't know if Bravo knows much about it. I know that he watched some things and whatnot, but how did we feel about the characters of the game? So like Harry Mason and Cheryl, Dahlia Gillespie, Alessa Gillespie, Sybil Bennett. So what did you guys feel about any of the characters? Like comparing them to other ones. Like obviously we'll get to the other characters later on, but were they kind of just generic, or did you like them?
Yeah, so I thought Harry Mason was kind of a generic character in general. And I also feel the same kind of towards Cheryl.
Mm,
Not as much towards Cheryl. As Sybil Bennett, and she doesn't make much of an impact towards me. She just kind of exists. But I really, really like the character of Alessa Gillespie, and I think that's like the strong point of the game to me is her character.
mm,
It's just really interesting to like read back into and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think there's anything too crazy character wise. I think a lot of the game appeal to me is just pure atmosphere and like sound quality.
yeah. How about monster design? Well, I don't know if Bravo has anything. Obviously he didn't play it, but
Yeah, so on the part of just regular characters, I think
mm,
Joe hit the nail on the head. The only thing I would say is Harry being a generic kind of guy is actually the perfect role, because you're supposed to be like some average Joe, and
yep.
Yeah, I
you
mean
just
it's
get
just
put into this situation. His character, like, he's not like a. It's kind of like Dead Space. Like, your dude's just like a dude. Like he Dead Space is like he's just an engineer, no real physical attributes or anything. And Harry's just like, yeah, I'm in this situation. I don't know what's going on. I'm tripping out. Here we are.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Bravo. So you're telling me Harry Mason is not a man that's a super cop that can punch boulders? This is what you're telling me?
I guess well,
Bravo doesn't get the reference. That's okay.
I don't.
It's
Apparently,
for the
Uh,
best. No spoilers for Bravo.
something in the game where you can where you can like punch a boulder.
Yeah,
It's
Harry Mason uppercutted a boulder later on
it's a
in the game.
different game reference. But realistically, I mean, it's the correct way for him to be a super basic character. He's literally just a guy taking his adopted daughter on vacation and ends up in Silent Hill. Like, what are we supposed to have a superhero? Probably not.
Yeah. I actually like the characters in the game. Like, but then again, I like most of the characters in the game and all the games. So even though Harry, yes, he's generic, but like you guys said, I think that's what adds the scariness to it because he really isn't capable of defending himself that well. But it's like the parental instincts of I need to find my daughter. I'll do anything to do it. So here he is, with a crowbar slapping some bats out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like them. I don't think there's any of them that really stand out. I think the characters get better kind of later on. So,
For sure.
But how about monster design for you guys? From this game, anything? Any of them stand out to you specifically, or not really?
So, my favorite monster in the game, and I actually learned something. The Gray Children. So, like the
Mm-hmm.
kids in the school. I learned while doing research for this that only NA has the Gray Children.
Mm-hmm.
The PAL editions and like the Japanese editions all have, a sub character as the Gray Children look too much like actual kids with knives,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
which I feel is a very necessary aspect of like seeing those type of characters for like the story that I view as canon, with it being like Alessa's fears are
Yes.
what the monsters are,
Mm-hmm.
which it would be like the kids in school bullying her. So it translates best to me being the NA version and having those Gray Children, because that's just always what I've imagined, not some other formation. And I don't remember the exact words they use for him for the non-NA versions of the game.
When they were trying to release the game, they actually got the game rejected multiple times because the children were too like children and had I think the original design they had like weapons in their hands or they had a bunch of blood on them or both. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like it definitely I don't know. To me, the ratings don't really matter. I wish they would have just released it as the developers wanted. Uh, on that note, I think the monsters are really cool. Shout out to the nurses. And that's all I'm gonna say.
We'll get to the nurses, Bravo. They're coming up. But the Gray Children are definitely, I think, the most iconic monsters in the game, especially because you're in a school.
Yeah.
Like that, the school in general. I don't know why. I think the school is the coolest place in the game. It's like the most iconic and burned into my memory, along with the intro of when you're first trying to find your daughter. Like you wake up, you run around, and then you have that like really creepy corridor you're kind of going through, and you just see all the blood, and then you get to that one
Yeah, where it
caged room.
changes.
Yeah, and you get that the body that's hung up on the fence, and then the Gray Children come, and you're supposed to get killed there. Um, I It's just a really cool moment in the game. And all like the angles are real wild.
Is Pyramid Head in the first one, or is it the Zipper Head guy or whatever? Like I don't know what the heck is.
The Pyramid Head is in the second game.
Yeah, there's another guy that like I can't remember what it is. I might be. Never mind. Keep going.
Silent Hill 1 has a lot of, like Joe said, it's like a lot of the monsters, at least, I don't think we know 100% if it's canon, but
the
it seems
most
like
widely accepted answer.
Yeah,
is that it's supposedly the fears of a child because she's afraid of and it's all of these kind of bug animal creatures almost.
Yeah, the little girl is afraid of bugs. She's afraid of her peers from school. She what else? Like the other monsters.
in particular.
Yeah,
the
like
other
dogs too.
The other monsters represent like I'm sorry, psychological things. Like it was really cool to learn all about all that.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't. As I said, I feel like we should try to get off this because we're only on Silent Hill 1.
That's okay. I
Um,
still have another question.
go for it, baby.
What are your guys' thoughts on Bravo? I'm not sure how much you've seen of like the actual map of the town and being like a basic grid system and like the fog system they use for the hiding the draw distance and all that. Tell me what you guys feel about, just the town and the outside atmosphere itself.
Go ahead, take it, Bravo, first.
I think the atmosphere does a really good job of being like mechanically a reason for being there, like reducing the draw distance, but also setting the scene. You know, like it's so before I read and watched up on Silent Hill, I thought it was always like canon. The guy was going in like kind of switching dimensions, like going in through like a fever dream where he just got into a car accident, but he thought he was in this place looking for his daughter because his mind was trying to like rationalize losing his daughter because he just got into a car accident, you know, like so in that aspect it really makes sense cuz he's like foggy, he's hazy, he's in and out going to this horrible plane of existence and then back to reality and kind of jumping back and forth. So I really like it. I think fog done correctly can make or break a game. Imagine Silent Hill without fog, where you just like look in the distance and there's like a monster, I don't know, swinging on the swing set or whatever, you know? It's just like not the right setting, not the right scene.
Yeah, I do want to, before I answer the map question, I do want to add this. Totally forgot. They actually based the town of Silent Hill based on a real place in the United States,
It's
which
actually in
is,
Pennsylvania.
yeah, in Pennsylvania. So it's cool. It's cool because it's, based on a real place. So, and it's crazy because this place like has a coal mine that was abandoned underneath that has basically just been burning for years and years, which makes it uninhabitable, and it's
Yeah,
obviously
so
poisonous to live in. And the smoke from the coal mine makes it look, you know, like fog.
yeah, the town is called Centralia, Pennsylvania. I actually like want to go. I don't want to go like into the city, but I want to go like physically see it because I think it'd be really cool. And
Hmm.
it's only a few hours away from me. But the inspiration based off of Centralia was actually mainly used only in the film of Silent Hill. It wasn't really inspired for the games itself.
Yes. Yeah. But it just was a cool little note
Yes,
that I just
absolutely.
was remembering when I was hearing. I was like, oh yeah, fog. Even though obviously it's huge in Silent Hill. First time I heard it during the podcast. Um, but talking about the map, I actually really like the map system because it's grid based and because when you first play the game, if you're doing it, without a guide and whatnot, you you will have a little bit of trouble learning where you're going. You'll feel lost. It feels kind of big, especially being with the fog. But later on, you kind of learn the map and you learn where you're going. And it reminds me a lot of Resident Evil, where Resident Evil, the thing they do real well is you learn the layout of that mansion to where you can do that in the back of your hand. Like, sleeping, you could basically go through that mansion. So, I feel like they did a pretty good job for it. That's me personally.
So with the fog, Silent Hill is obviously extremely popular for it, but a lot of games at the time, for example, Turok and GoldenEye and Bubsy 3D, as well as like Star Wars Rogue Squadron, all use the fog effect as well to help with their draw distances. But it all comes back to like Bravo said, a game that does it right makes it, that much more appealing. And whenever somebody thinks of, fog in a video game, Silent Hills, at least to me, the first one that comes to mind. And I'm sure most people out there who have had some experience with the game would also agree in that case. But another thing with the town that I thought was really cool that I didn't know particularly until I did some more of my research. All of the road names in the town of Silent Hill are named after famous horror authors. So I don't remember the exact name for it, but the main road was based off the name of Silent or Stephen King's writing alias. Having a stroke here, folks. No worries. And all the other roads throughout the town based off famous horror authors, which a lot of which they took some inspiration from that you're able to see into the game, which I thought was a really cool, nod of respect that they gave off.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. The it seems like the horror community really likes things to have a, I don't want to say an Easter egg, but like a meaning behind them. That way, whenever they dive deep because they have a problem and they learn all these cool little facts, they can be happy about those, which is pretty cool.
Also, a lot of the character names throughout the show are based off of characters from other horror movies, which they would
Mhm.
take like first name of character from this horror movie and last name of character from this horror movie and smash them together.
Yeah, I'm
The
glad they
only
didn't go with the original name for Harry. It was something really weird, hard to say, and they're like, we need something better, like more relatable. Okay, how about Harry? Perfect.
um, actually, I thought that this was the thing before I even learned it because of the character, which I can't remember his first name right now for the life of me. Oh, it's Michael, Dr. Michael Kaufman, because Kaufman is a very unique last name. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, Lloyd Kaufman. He's a guy that makes horror movies. And it just kind of clicked with me.
Clicks.
So, yeah, it makes sense. So, yeah, that
Also,
definitely was a cool one.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the ending of the game and, like the big bad and what you thought of that boss fight in particular, Brad, since I know you've went through it.
So, I actually learned something neat when you get into the boss fight. I always thought the boss fight was actually kind of hard, but then I realized that the boss fight is as hard as you want to make it because if you go in there with no ammo, she just dies instantly.
Yep.
That
That's
I blew my mind when I watched. I think I was actually watching a speed run of it, but I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because it,
I remember watching you struggle with it for a while,
yeah, I
and that's
was
why I wanted to ask you in
slapping it with a
particular.
shotgun.
And you were fighting it for quite a bit. And
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, you may have ran out of ammo because you like started to panic and you were like, "Oh, I killed it on my last shot."
Yes, that is 100% what happened. Because I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, what would have happened if I ran out of ammo? I think I kept saying, "I'm like, I'm gonna run out of ammo. It's an ammo dump here," and well, lo and behold, I think that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a
it's pretty
unique
wild.
twist.
I like it
But
though.
I also really like the character design for the final boss, that Baphomet like look to it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's about all I got for Silent Hill 1. Personally, my favorite game of the series.
Yeah, it's. I think because it's a PlayStation 1 game, it really makes me more appeal to it. Like I've got a weird soft spot for PS1 games. Um, but it's pretty close between that and Silent Hill 2. I think it's a good way to transition because Silent Hill 2 is probably considered the best of the series for most people. Obviously, everybody has their own opinion and whatnot. But Silent Hill 2 came out on the PS2, and I feel like they, graphically made the game really, really good for a PS2 game. Like we were talking PS1, in game didn't look the greatest. You could tell it was a PS1 game, but cutscenes were really done well. But then the PS2 game came out, and boy, oh boy, did they, I feel like, capture everything that they wanted to do in Silent Hill 1 plus more.
Absolutely.
Um, so, how about this? Let's take a little side turn before we get into stuff. Bravo, what do you know about Silent Hill 2?
Nothing.
Have you watched
Fair.
anything about it, or
Yeah.
like okay, so you've seen a little bit.
He's come prepared, all right? Don't
Yeah.
insult the guy's intelligence.
Yeah, I was curious if if he's seen any bits of pieces of gameplay and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't want to speak from any point of authority, but I'm just here to enjoy you guys enjoying talking about this game series.
This is Spooktober month. Bravo's just getting his feet wet into Spooktober.
Next year, Bravo's gonna come in here and he's gonna know more than both of us.
Next year,
He's
you're
gonna
going to be
dive in
done
deep.
doing house stuff, and
That too.
we're going to do a whole month of Spooktober. It's going to be
31 podcast.
Yeah, 31
31 Let's Plays.
31 days of horror in more ways than one.
Yeah. Boy. Okay, so basically Silent Hill 2 is the game that like went, I would say, the mainstream. Like while yes, Silent Hill 1
Yeah.
was Silent Hill 1 was very popular and it did well, but Silent Hill 2 just went over the top because it had Pyramid Head, which was like, oh my gosh, this guy's insane. He's so cool looking. Everybody loved him. That's
Yeah,
what
he's
drew
so
you in.
basic, and I
Yeah,
love it.
he's so basic or whatever, but everybody loves Pyramid Head because he realistically he does kind of look cool.
He does look. I love the movie interpretations of how he looked. I think they
So
did
good.
phenomenal.
Yes. So I do always have this slight problem, and it's just because of being a fan of the games. The games are kind of their own story. Like Silent Hill 1 has nothing to do with Silent Hill 2, for example. Silent Hill 1 does have something to do with Silent Hill 3, but I always find it like this cheap. It's a cash grab when they put Pyramid Head in other games and the movies and whatnot because he has absolutely no reason to be in there because it is, basically supposed to be James.
Yeah.
So, the fact that he comes up is like, no, this is in James' mind. It's James. It's not. It's not with Harry. It's not in Heather's mind. It's not anything like that. Anyways, but I thought this game was wild. The story. It took me a little bit to understand what was going on because it was once again very obscure. But then you kind of piece it together towards the end, and it's like, holy crap. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of like sexual stuff related to the game because of James' sexual frustrations from
A ton.
His wife.
his wife. Yeah. So basically, long story short, his wife was dying, terminally ill.
She did
And
die.
yeah, well, she was dying at the time or whatever, and his, I think, frustration of the sexual part was because he couldn't have sex with her, so he would fantasize about like the nurses at the hospital and whatnot. Then obviously, yes, she dies
I
and
thought.
whatnot, and then the guilt.
Okay, I thought she did die like 3 years before, and he received like a letter from her, and
Yep,
he
he
was
did. It,
confused and like went looking for her because he thought maybe she lived, but she was already dead.
I think it's kind of honestly, which I don't know if you put this two and two together. Doesn't that sound like Resident Evil 7 a little bit? Like, the wife goes missing
Yes,
for 3 years and go to some random place chasing this fever dream of, is she alive?
it does. But I'm
Where is she?
pretty sure she was already dead before he went.
Oh
But
yeah,
he
she
received
definitely
the
was.
letter and like didn't understand, so he went.
Yeah, she definitely was. And Silent Hill is the place that they went to. So, anyways, let's jump in. How about we'll talk about some of the characters? We already talked a little bit about it. So there's James, Maria, Angela, Mary, Eddie, Laura Pyramid Head. So, honestly, the one that kind of stood out to me as the weird one, and he stands out to me the most, is Eddie.
I agree.
Because his scenes and how he is like very prominent. It's like the throw up sound that he does
So
in the
fun
bathroom.
fact about that scene:
Oh,
They recorded it 3 times. The first
Mm,
time was the most graphic, and it basically had, like, real life sounds of somebody throwing up. It got
okay.
scrapped immediately whenever it got taken to, like, the higher ups. Like, they had an angle of, like, visibly him throwing up instead of, like, the angle of, like, from behind him where you can't see it,
Mhm.
and that got cut immediately. Then they, like, cut out the visuals but kept the audio, and then they immediately axed it again, and then they were like, "Alright, we're gonna make up some fake audio. We're gonna put a angle where you don't actually see him throwing up." And that was, like, one of the parts of the game they went through and redid the most.
See, that's crazy to me because, like, I remember, like, 1, it goes on for a long time.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's
very
almost
unsettling.
yes, it's too long, which I'm sure they did on purpose, and it's disgusting. Like, and Eddie is off his rocker, man. He's absolutely insane, and basically, you feel a little bad for him because he was bullied, and but it's kind of like that story of you get bullied, and then you bully the wrong guy, and he goes off the deep end, and he goes and he starts killing people, which is the story of Eddie. Um, and it's kind of funny because every one of the characters has their own rendition of Silent Hill that they see.
Yeah. So, Eddie, I think, is my favorite character of Silent Hill 2 as well, for, like, living characters, not like monsters.
Hmm.
But Eddie, so from all the research I've done, the only confirmed kill Eddie has is a dog. He shot a dog. Based off
Hmm.
everything that, lore-wise, which obviously isn't certified by anybody outside of fan theories and what's in the game. Eddie did not kill any human outs he only killed a dog. Everything else was just, like, his Silent Hill, essentially, like, his mental state, which I thought it was a really cool like, plot line to him that he's, off his rocker, killing, but turns out he never actually did. But he all of his scenes with Eddie just were so uneasy for me, like, they just unsettled me top to bottom throughout the whole thing,
Pizza.
and yeah, it's
Oh
just
my
weird to
gosh.
me.
Yeah, his eating it's just like I think it's just the noises like they trigger you,
Yeah.
and they did very well with it.
I
So
also throughout the both of the first 2 games, they just, like, randomly had people walk around the room and audio recorded the steps and just, like, random noises that would happen, and they would just play them randomly. So if you play through the first 2 Silent Hill games, your audio is gonna be different every playthrough you do. So if me and Brad both play through it right now and have our audio going, you're gonna hear 2 different things, which I thought was really cool for them to have some RNG aspect to, like, the audio aspect of the game back in that time.
also talking about audio really quickly. Akira Yamaoka, I believe that's how you say his name. Um, that man is insane. So he did most of the game's audios. I believe he did up to Shattered Memories. Might have done one more afterwards. I don't know. But he was very good at making these unsettling, um, bringing the ambiance of the games, right? And he went on and did a lot more. I think he even did Evil Within also. So pretty cool. He actually did the music, the composing for the movies also.
And
So
it's wonderful. The
mhm,
music, I love Silent Hill's soundtrack.
yeah, he's it's super good. Um, but I also actually I I like most of them, but I thought Angela's story was also one of the more unsettling stories too, being that she clearly a teenager who was strongly implied that she was abused and raped by her father, and like her Silent Hill world was basically that the world was on fire because she was always in pain.
Yeah.
So it was like when you learn that, you're like, wow, this game's like real deep, like crazy deep. Like it. I don't think there was a game that was hinting at crazy stuff like this, and hitting any deep subject matter like that. least I can't think of anything else.
No, especially for the time, it's like even still today, if not more today, it's a touchy topic,
Oh
especially
yeah.
to have references of in a video game and a game that, makes horror out of it, which I mean, it is what it is in the game, and it definitely helps encapsulate like everything that goes down in Silent Hill 2 always comes back to like that sexual focus.
Yep. Yep. Because and well, I guess we could jump into it. So Pyramid Head is
We skipped Bravo. Bravo, you like any characters?
yeah. You know anything? He likes Pyramid Head.
I do like Pyramid Head. He's pretty cool. And I don't understand his relation to the main character, or is he? Would Pyramid Head be a protagonist or an antagonist in anybody's other world, or is he just in James's?
So he is just in James's world because it's basically his. So as you know, very psychological horror Silent Hill games are,
Yeah.
and basically because spoilers, James kills his wife, because he couldn't handle the couldn't handle basically dealing with her being sick and whatnot. He wanted to be free.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was his way of punishing himself for Mary's death. Um, so he's basically an antagonist, but it's basically a representation of him. And it's like, okay, so James, as I said, he was like dreaming of having sex with like the nurses in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital while his wife was there and everything. So when you see the mannequins, which are, I'm sure you've seen them, they're basically just legs, and you see Pyramid Head always basically like molesting and humping and doing all these weird things to these mannequins and whatnot, right?
Yep.
And it's and then he comes over and he starts chasing you, trying to kill you, whatever. It's pretty wild. Um,
Follow up
I
question:
yeah
why the pyramid on the head?
Ask Masahiro Ito
yeah
because
It
he's the
was
one
a
that developed it, and it's the probably the top two most iconic things from Silent Hill.
it's something to like put in your back pocket, right? Like if you're ever developing a character, just add something like weird and like unexplainable, like painfully unexplainable to the character. Like it just makes people it's off-putting, right? Like why does this guy have a pyramid on his head and why is he so horny?
yeah it's cool design. It's strange, but it's also crazy how large of a sword he has, and it just like it makes it
Yeah.
creepy, just dragging that thing along.
Well,
It's
that's
making
because
the
James
weird
likes
noises.
anime, which is clearly obvious.
Clearly, clearly.
So, fun fact about Silent Hill 2, there are 9 enemies, and they still thought there were too many enemies in the game. Like
Hmm.
9 different types of enemies, which I thought
Uh,
was a low number. Even like from what I've watched, I felt like there was a lot more.
mhm.
They could have done 7 for the 7 deadly sins and just well the 7 plus Pyramid Head, so 8.
But I'm getting the vibe from both of you guys that Pyramid Head's your favorite enemy in this game.
I do like Pyramid. I also like the nurses because they
Hey.
have a good representation. I like that there was a lot of thought put into this game. Like there is, I don't feel like it's not like there's a bat flying around. You're like, I gotta kill a bat because it's a horror game. Put a bat in there, right? Um, everything just seemed to fit, and they're all creepy and weird in their own way, right? So I really appreciate that about these this game specifically too. Um, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about for Silent Hill 2.
A little few quick things.
Yeah.
The nurses are by far my favorite character. The bubblehead nurses. I
Hmm.
think they are the most intricate character design in Silent Hill to me for
Yes.
creepiness as well as just like overall aesthetically good looking enemy. and not in like a yeah,
You
the way
know.
and the other way. But
All right. So since you brought it up, do you feel like the bubblehead nurses don't have faces because James never looked up, or is this just reading into it too much?
that's literally what the game is like wants you to do. They want you to read into it too much and come up with your own what's
Mhm.
canon. Like that's what the developers intended is for you to
Yeah.
come up with it your way. And realistically, that makes sense.
hmm So
But
Pyramid Head is like he hides his face because he's shameful, and he's got a big
Could be.
sword because
nope.
And
he's compensating.
The last thing I have for Silent Hill 2, the storyline of it, well, two things. 50 people complete for everything that was done in Silent Hill 2. And then the actual storyline of it was heavily inspired by the book Crime and Punishment by Theodore Dostoevsky, which I don't know if either of you have read into, but I have not personally. But I know it's very popular.
No, yeah, I do not know much about that.
Nope, I can't
But
read.
I will so because I'm a collector, I will mention a few things for that possibly guys don't know. Original game released, and it was fine. Then they released an Xbox version in the same year in December later on, and it was Silent Hill 2 Restless Dreams. So, um, Restless Dream, well, that's North America's version. This was essentially the director's cut because it had a DLC included with it. I can't remember the name of it right now off the top of my head. It might even
I
be
have it.
called. What was
Born
that?
from a Wish?
Yes, Born from a Wish. Yes, that was the mode. So there's that. Then there's also the greatest hits copy on the PS2. The greatest hits copy, the PS2, is a port of basically that one. They included the DLC. So the collectors out there who collect the game probably are always going to go for that black label, but you get a little bit better content if you go for the greatest hits. Funny enough,
Which do you got?
I have the black label. So I
I really
actually
thought
want to
he was going to
buy.
say he had both.
I
A real
want.
collector would.
I'm going to buy greatest hits one.
A real collector would also have the PAL and Japanese versions.
You know what, Joe? I don't like you right now.
Yeah, how well is your Mandarin right now? Is it pretty good or? Nah.
So, yeah, wasn't much to say there. I just wanted to add those in there. But we can move on to Silent Hill 3. This was, is one of the people I think would say arguably better choices too. Some people absolutely love Heather. So Heather kind of steals the show, and honestly, I think when they made the movie, the first movie, excuse me, I think they ended up taking a lot from 1, 2, and 3 and merging them together,
Yeah.
doing a little bit of fan service because it kind of doesn't make sense when you're like think of it from the Silent Hill perspective because they basically were like, okay, we're gonna take Silent Hill 1 story, but we're basically going to make Harry Heather. That like it kind of played out like that, and then they just threw in Pyramid Head in there also.
Yeah.
Um,
Silent 1 story, Silent Hill 3 main character, Silent Hill 2 enemies.
yeah, that's basically what happened. So, um, as I said, doesn't make sense from a standpoint, but let me tell you that movie's amazing, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. Um, But Silent Hill 3 is an actual continuation from Silent Hill 1. You play as Heather Mason, which is the daughter of Harry Mason. And then you are kind of trying to find out because your dad actually Harry gets killed in this game, which I thought was actually kind of neat. They don't really, when you first are playing it, they don't like make it completely apparent that, hey, this is Harry's daughter, and boom, Harry died. They just are kind of hinting around, oh, your father died. Um, it's neat. I think they actually had a lot of iconic characters and figures in it. Like one of my favorites is Robbie. Robbie the rabbit. This is actually the first time you see Robbie. So, um, Joe.
Yeah. So the reason that the reasoning behind why you get to see Harry get killed at the beginning of this game, Silent Hill 3 was not originally created to be a continuation of Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill
Hmm.
3 was originally to be developed as an on-rails shooter game. And
Wow, I did not know that.
the character Heather was then created whenever they decided to go away from the on-rail shooter and go back to a normal Silent Hill game. And they went through and had the storyline completely written out for Heather to have her own story, similar to Harry or James. But the developers realized there was a ton of gaps in the storyline from Silent Hill 1 that weren't wrapped up. So they ended up turning Heather into the baby at the end of Silent Hill 1. They ended up, spoilers, obviously I'm late, but whatever. But
Yep.
that's when they ended up deciding, like, hey, we need to do something with Harry if that's the case, or he needs to be a part of this game. And they were just like, oh, we'll just kill him right in the beginning. And that's how we ended up with Silent Hill 3 being a continuation, but it was not intended to be. There's actually a Silent Hill game that got released as an arcade machine on a rail shooter, which was what Silent Hill 3 was supposed to be. But it was supposed to get released with the like the light gun,
Mm.
and you actually get access to bonus content if you own the light gun in Silent Hill 3. You get a special weapon for Heather.
So is the rail shooter like the arcade rail shooter like you're talking like physically you would go to an arcade and you'd play this Silent Hill version?
Yes, there is a canon Silent Hill arcade game,
Huh.
and it's a on-rail shooter, so it plays like House of the Dead or something like that.
That's pretty cool. I wonder if I've played it before and just didn't know. Because I'm old.
But I was super shocked to find out that, Silent Hill 3, like one of my favorite like horror, because I feel like that game's scarier than Silent Hill 1, personally, was supposed to be an arcade shooter.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely a really cool fact. I actually didn't even know that. But yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. I think out of all of the games, I think this game has the most iconic setting for one of the
Oh my
areas, which
god,
is
yes.
the amusement park. Um, the
It
amusement park.
also has my
Oof,
favorite boss fight of the entire series.
who's that?
The Alessa fight.
Yes. Um, I also like I don't know why I like it just sticks out to me. So you actually fight um Claudia's Claudia Claudia's father, abusive father. And I can't even remember his name right now. But he keeps talking about a seal because you're trying to get this seal from him.
Yes.
And you go down, he's like in the sewer and he's like crawling around. And all I remember is I played it and I had like the machine gun and he was just like "Ah!" He was like glitching out, having like a seizure, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's really easy."
Is that Vincent?
Um,
Vincent.
I think it is. I can't even think right now.
So let me ask you boys a question.
Leonard Wolf is his name.
Uh, how shoehorned do you feel Pyramid Head is in this game? Like does it just feel like out of place, like completely? Because I feel like from the outside looking in, like okay, she's either because she's connected to her father or she's I don't know, maybe in a similar mindset or something, or maybe a mixture of both. She's got some aspects of like her father's outer world stuff, but What are your thoughts? Because
Am I
Pyramid.
wrong? I don't believe Pyramid Head is in Silent Hill 3.
I don't.
I
I
think
don't
he's
believe
in
he is.
2, Origins, Homecoming, and Downpour.
Oh,
Yeah, he ends up showing up later on. So
well, that's my bad then. So he's
no,
not
you're good.
shoehorned in.
Yeah, he was mainly in 2 because he was James, which is not her father, just to make sure we got you on the same page for that one. But then he comes back in Origins and Homecoming, and he's like in Downpour, but he's not a enemy, if I'm not mistaken.
So basically, Silent Hill, Team Silent made 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they did the correct thing, I guess you could say, because they understood that Pyramid Head was James's. It's his, in his head. Then it gets pushed off to other teams, and that's when they're like, "Ooh, I know how to make some money.
Pyramid
Let's just
Head.
throw in Pyramid Head, baby."
Okay, so maybe. So I feel like Pyramid Head should have been in 3 and not in 2.
Why?
Because 2 doesn't make any sense at all. And no,
So,
no.
so what you're saying? I think this is what he's saying. He thinks 1 and 2 should be the story of Harry and Heather, and because they're a continuation, and then 3 should be Silent Hill 2, because basically Silent Hill 2 has no connection to the games. It's like just in between.
Right.
I'm just taking a wild guess. That's what he's saying.
So like Harry is Claudia's, which I don't know her fake name in this. Heather. Yeah, Harry is Heather's dad, right? She's
Yes.
she's
Right.
grown up and now she goes to Outer World, so it makes sense that maybe she would see some of her father's like Outer World characters or something. But in 2, like, what's the connection? You know?
Yeah. So 2 is its own story completely. There
Same
is
town,
other
different
the only
story.
the only difference, the only similarity is it's Silent Hill, but there is no connection as in like characters and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think right now off the top of my head. Are there enemies or anything that carries over? I mean, like the dogs,
Alessa,
the
but
dogs too. Like, so
yeah.
there's a couple things.
All right,
Um,
it's time to theory craft. If a monster gets strong enough, he can cross realms into other people's nightmarish realities and wreak havoc. He's like Freddy.
like Freddy
He can,
Krueger, yeah.
yeah, he can jump into your dreams. It's
Uh,
beautiful.
Yeah, I think they did really well with Silent Hill and playing on the fact that they're able to just go these complete different routes with enemies based off and make it wrapped around an individual's fears psychologically. And I really liked in the first 4 that you don't really have that overlap. Sure, there might
mhm,
be some similar things like, the dogs per se, but it's a pretty natural fear that like people are scared of dogs.
yeah. Um, so I'll be honest, Silent Hill 3 is one of the games that doesn't stick out to me because it's between the three, it's my least favorite. I like 1 significantly more than 3, and I like 2 significantly more than 3. 3 it's very good still, but I don't know. It always threw me off. I feel like some parts of it I think it could be also part of my own fault. Specifically, there's a part where you're in, I believe, a train station, and so when you walk into it, as most people know, if you haven't played Silent Hill, when you first enter an area, there's a map to help you find out where to go. Well, I passed this map and in the train station, and I was in this train station forever, um, and it just kind of I think threw me off a little bit. Obviously, as I said, definitely my own fault, but I think it's also just Heather wasn't my favorite character. I like James a lot more personally. Um, I just feel like the characters themselves weren't as likable, or maybe not as likable is not the term, but uh, they didn't. It didn't impact me as much as it did in 2. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I like Heather as a character. I think she is an interesting character, and I thought she was a good like wrap up to the Silent Hill one.
Mhm.
I think she's probably my favorite of the main protagonists. But yeah, I understand completely that the game may not be as in depth story wise as Silent Hill 2. But like thematically and like area wise, I think Silent Hill 3 is my favorite just based off of the strength of the amusement park itself. I think just
Yeah.
carries it for me.
And that is a huge boom for me because like if the amusement park was not in the game, it might fall off even more for myself.
Yeah.
But man, that amusement park is amazing. So, um, yeah, and monster design, I think they're. I honestly think they're pretty cool. I There's some big dudes, big guys with these like club arms that kind of like look like they're walking around, kind of like monkey style. You know, their arms are also. And then the big fat guys, big fatties, they're in
Big
the train.
answers. Yeah.
Yeah. I like those guys. There are a lot of the design stuff like that. I always liked the enemies in Silent Hill though, so pretty cool. Also, didn't know this for a little while. Silent Hill 3 came with a soundtrack if you're a collector. So if you don't have the soundtrack, you don't have a complete copy. And it sucks because I had to buy another copy to get the
Ouch.
soundtrack.
Mhm.
Um, does anybody have anything else to talk about Silent Hill 3?
What were your thoughts on Claudia as a character and how she played out in the final fight against the god in this one?
Um, Gosh, I all I remember is, and I'm trying to remember if this is in this game. Is this the one where? Yes, it is. Okay, okay. I was like, did it happen in 1? I can't remember the games like merging. Um, where Heather basically makes herself throw up that fetus,
Yeah.
that then Claudia
Mhm.
eats it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a super weird thing. I think it's cool, but man, it was like gross. Grossed me out. It reminded me of some of the stuff with Eddie. Just gross. Is like, really? Oh my good lord. But she was like, I have to have, the god needs to be born. So because Heather had the baby in her. And I think it was a cool way to end it. It was wild and it looked pretty cool. What about you? Might be kind of vague. I don't remember it super hardcore. It's like kind of jogged back there at the back of my memory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in the character of Claudia as a whole. I thought she was like a really good antagonist. And
Hmm.
some fun facts about her. Uh, she was originally named Christy. It
Hmm.
was Christy Wolf,
Oh
but
boy.
they thought it was too cute of a name and
Mhm.
changed it to Claudia. And she was modeled directly after Julianne Moore, and then they just took her eyebrows off because fashion magazines had a bunch of models without eyebrows, and the devs thought it was really scary. So they
Hmm.
literally just took Julianne Moore and removed their eyebrows and made it the antagonist. But I thought it was, I thought she was a good main antagonist. I thought the ending was as unsettling as it gets. I don't
Hmm.
know many people who would want to swallow a fetus that gets thrown up, let alone,
No, no.
yeah.
Nope, definitely not.
I don't know what goes through the developers' heads when they come up with these things, but it turns out interesting.
Definitely does. Yes. So I feel like Silent Hill 4, moving onward, we're probably not gonna have a lot to talk about because none of us has played it. I haven't watched the full thing. I played, as I said, about halfway through it. Um, this game is, I think a lot of people think it makes a turn because it's very different from the rest of them. So you essentially start out, you're locked in your room 302 and you can't get out. You're locked from the inside. So all these chains, bolts, everything you can imagine on this door. and for some reason, nobody can hear you in this room. Um, nobody, you could look out and see people moving around and doing things, but nothing's going on. You play as Henry Townsend, and um, it's kind of cool because when you're in the room, the game is in first person. When you're outside, when you travel, so you go, I believe it's in your bathroom. There's like a hole in the wall, and you crawl through the hole in the wall and you go to like basically another dimension.
Yeah, you're
And
in like a train station, if I'm not mistaken. It feels like.
yes, at the beginning you are.
Yeah.
I believe it's a train station. Yes, and then it's back to the third person action that we kind of know. And it's kind of different. They have actually light and heavy attacks in this game. So when you just tap the attack button, you will do a quick swing, but you can also charge and hold your attack up to do a more powerful one. I think they try to make the action a little bit more dynamic and whatnot. But yeah, it was cool from what I played. I actually had probably one of the biggest jump scares in this game, I would say, out of all of them, that scared the crap out of me. So in Silent Hill 1, there was one part where it was just like a ghost girl walked through me in somewhere. I can't even remember where. That kind of scared me. Silent Hill 2, there's you're going through the historical society, I believe. It's like a museum, and a body just drops when you're walking. I believe that's in 2. Or is it in 3? It might be in 3. I don't know. Don't quote
Speaking
me.
of 3, I actually do have another note here that I forgot to mention.
Do it.
The church map from Silent Hill 3, towards the end of the game,
Mhm.
it looks like it was drawn by a child, and that's because it actually was drawn by a friend of the developer's child, and they like scanned it in and put it into the game.
Mm.
And so this little girl is a game dev before she
That's
even.
that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
And
Man,
also Heather, the character, was named after her voice and motion capture artist, which was Heather Morris.
that is pretty cool. Um, so yeah, it's tough because it's been a while since I've played these games, so like I'm like mixing them up a little bit. Can't remember what exactly parts happened. But anyway, so in Silent Hill 4, this for some reason this one scared the crap out of me. So you'd peek through at your the next apartment over's room. So every time you'd come back into the room, you can go look and check on what's going on. You'd see the girl kind of like walking around and hanging out. And you would also see the Robbie doll, which from, like I said, Silent Hill 3, he's just kind of hanging out there. And then one time he just like, I believe he was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden he turns his head, and like the music kind of jolts
Makes
up.
that
And
loud, yeah.
yeah, and I wasn't prepared for it, and it was a good little jump scare for me. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the bits of Silent Hill 4 that I played. So there's not really much I can say since I haven't actually beaten it.
Well, I did not like Silent Hill 4. It's not one I have much interest in playing. But some fun facts I do have about the game. Room 302 was actually supposed to be a complete another series being developed by Team Silent. It wasn't supposed to be a Silent Hill game, and I think that does show quite drastically. The game
It
does not
definitely
take
does.
the game doesn't even take place in Silent Hill. It takes place in a like neighboring town of Ashfield. And yeah, it was originally going to be, like a spin-off series, and it didn't. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. They definitely throw in like some Silent Hill aspects, but just overall, I didn't really enjoy this iteration.
I know that so all I know about the game for the later half is that it gets worse
Yeah,
significantly because it becomes like an escort mission, from what I've heard. Which, as we all know, is the best thing you could do for a video game, add an escort mission. I think we kind of speed run 2 of the games because I don't know about you guys, but I've never touched them. I do own them, but I have not gotten around to play them, and they are Silent Hill Origins and Silent Hill Shattered Memories. So Shattered Memories, real quickly, is basically a reimagining of the first game. So it was developed for the Wii and also PS2 and PlayStation PSP. So the Wii version, I thought this was really cool. I have played a tiny bit of the Wii version, barely remember a lot of it, but the Wii mote, they would have like static calls coming through the speaker, and you like it sounded like a phone call like from back in the day that was like really hard to hear but you can understand it and whatnot. Really cool use of the Wiimote, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's basically like the beginning of what the PS5 controller is now. That was like the
Mhm.
first time we've seen it used in that type of way.
Yeah, definitely super cool thing. And Silent Hill Origins takes place, it's a prequel, and you do actually see this is kind of funny. So in I think it's oh man, is it Homecoming? Yes. In Silent Hill Homecoming, you actually see the main character Travis like driving the main character of Silent Hill Homecoming just randomly. Alex Shepard. So he's just like driving him. There's like no real reason. He just makes like an appearance. It's kind of funny. Um, so yeah, and I talk about know nothing. I know actually nothing about Silent Hill Origins. So
Okay.
except for it's a PS2 and PSP.
I It's been a while since I've watched through these games, but I have some fun facts on the topic, as always. So Silent Hill Origins was not made by Team Silent. It was made by Climax Action, which is a United States-based team, and it was originally going to be a dark comedy game. It wasn't intended to be like a typical Silent Hill. It was meant to be a comedy version of it. And Silent Hill Origins is also referred to as Silent Hill Zero in Japan, as it is the prequel. Silent Hill Homecoming was actually delayed a year on release due to the large amount of blood and gore that needed removed from the game to make it through ESRB ratings. And even with that censoring, they still didn't make it. They needed like an extra censored copy to get it into Germany, and Germany would confiscate any of the non like German specific copies as it was completely illegal to own, with be
Hmm.
forced with like an equivalent of like a felony and a citation.
So
And
really quickly, because I don't know if I made it clear. I've actually beaten Homecoming. Um,
okay,
so Homecoming I did complete on the PS3. So this game gets a lot of hate, and this is I'm trying to remember if this is the one where that you helped me out in. I don't believe it is though. But I know this game gets a lot of hate, and it's partially because it was made by another team, and they did the whole "hey, here's Pyramid Head" randomly, um, crap in the game. If I'm remembering correctly, as I said, I'm
yep.
trying to not mix them up. But I didn't think the story was as bad as some people make it out. Like the game obviously had to go somewhere, um, and they didn't have Team Silent, so maybe give them a little bit of a break. I do understand some of the stuff, but it was okay. I wouldn't say it was absolute dumpster trash, but it was a decent Silent Hill game, I would say. Like at least it was playable,
And
unlike some
this is
games.
Homecoming, right?
Homecoming.
Yes,
So like
Homecoming.
one of the endings in Homecoming I saw was the judgment ending, which if the main character does basically like an evil playthrough, makes a lot of bad decisions. The boogeymen, which are like the pyramid head looking guys, have him strapped to a chair, and they put the two halves of the pyramid together over his head and like symbolize him like becoming one of them, which is kind of a cool, like, maybe not totally canonical reason, but still a reason why Pyramid Head exists, or uh like there to just like punish people whenever they come to the Silent Hill or their outer world or whatever. It's kind of cool. I don't know if it has any kind of like canon uh, connections, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah. The end boss, I remember like being pretty like sick of the game because it was super like bullet sponge, meat sponge thing.
Yeah.
Like pretty bad. Um as I said, game definitely eh, just to preface this, I can handle a lot of crappy games. So some people will hate it more. I kind of dealt with some of the shortcomings of it. So
Brad,
didn't
you actively seek out bad games.
I do win back as game of MVP.
Win back game of the year.
I
Apparently
do
it
have
is.
some. I do have some more fun facts in regards to Silent Hill Homecoming. Silent
Yes.
Hill Homecoming is the first Silent Hill game that takes place primarily in daylight, which I for a minute was like Silent Hill, for the room is mostly daytime, but whenever you leave the room, it's not daytime. It also is the only Silent Hill game where your main player character is a combat veteran, is actually experienced with weapons, which it does have a little more leniency towards combat in that. And Silent Hill Homecoming actually has my favorite iteration of the nurses. Um, the like gauzed face to me is like the best nurse with the knives instead of like the revolvers or the pipes or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I thought that's the best nurse of the series. And we also mentioned Silent Hill Shattered Memories. They were also made by Climax Action, and it's basically a loose iteration of the first game, like you said, but it has the addition of a cell phone as opposed to the radio you use in the first game. And it was also not the first Silent Hill game available on a Nintendo console, surprisingly, as there was a Silent Hill play novel released for the Game Boy Advance in Japan, which something I never heard about, Brad. I'm
Yeah,
curious
it's
if you've
weird.
ever known about it.
You've heard me say it. Remember I think I said it, do I add this to my collection? It's like $150 to $200 for a
It's
Japanese Game Boy Advance novel.
Hey,
It's
I
like
just ordered 3 Japanese Nintendo
I
DS
I
games for
know.
my
I also
collection.
just bought a house though, Joe. Okay,
Yeah, I don't.
I'm hurting right now.
Whenever I come into the garage, you'll have less to worry about. But
It's a
The
big
collection
garage.
for
It's
me.
a big garage
You
for the
can.
listeners. It's not like a single car garage. Don't worry
it doesn't
about
matter if
Joe.
it was. I don't need much room. But did we touch on
And
Downpour at all?
no, but I do want to note one more thing. So the most expensive game out of all of them is Shattered Memories on the PS2. Game roughly right now about $275 to $300 for this game.
Dude, I just
So
love the cover art of that game. It's so
it's
good.
it's really good.
It's so creepy.
So and while we're talking about prices, so all the PS2 games, because I think if you're gonna collect Silent Hill stuff, you might as well get it on PlayStation since that's where all of them are. Um, they're essentially, if you're doing PS2 and back, a there's not a game you're gonna get for under $100 except for maybe Silent Hill 2 if you're doing complete in box. Um, every game is basically over $100 now. It's kind of wild. Yes, there are exceptions, and yes, you could find deals, but like if you were like, hey, I'm just gonna go pick up Silent Hill 1 right now, and you didn't really care about the price, like you basically expect to pay at least $100. So, anyways, moving on to Silent Hill Downpour. So Silent Hill Downpour is one that some people actually really like, and some people are a little, I don't know. It's like very 50-50, right? So you play as Murphy Pendleton, and I actually really like the idea and setting of it where you're a prisoner and you basically get arrested because you want to get revenge from for having your daughter gets killed. And so you're basically going there to get revenge on that. Then basically, long story short, you are on a bus getting transported because um, you're kind of getting blackmailed. And I'm not going to get too deep into the story, but you get on this bus, the bus crashes, and then you're kind of going through the game, and you end up winding into Silent Hill. I think the thing that's cool about this game is they try to do a little bit more with the combat, but at the same time, it felt really weird. I almost like it better when it's like simplistic and just like, all right, here you go. This is your attack button. Um, Also, the big thing I think with this game, and I can't say anything about the Xbox 360 version, but this game runs like garbage, like hot garbage. There are parts of the game where the frames will just drop, and you're like, basically you go from one room to another, and the game, I don't even know what happens. It's like it just tanks to like 8 to 10 FPS for a good 20 to 30 seconds, and then it comes back up. Um, the game, like I said, pretty cool. And this was part of a trilogy, so they were making the second movie, this game, and they were also making Book of Memories all at the same time. They wanted to do. Oh, actually, there were four of them. Now I'm thinking about it, because HD collection was the same time too. But I think I'm right with that. I think the movie was around the same time, the third one or second one, excuse me. But anyways, yeah, we won't get too deep into it, but it had its interesting points in my opinion.
I
But
thought it was cool that they like used morality to shape the story of the game, similar
they,
to Shattered Memories.
yeah, so they had these choices, but they didn't
They
feel like
didn't
they were
feel
super
very
impactful.
impactful, but I
Yeah,
believe they had more to do with the ending of the game than anything.
yeah.
But it was a cool take for the time.
For sure. Like I said, I think the biggest downfall for them is the game just needed to be cooked in the oven a little bit more. Like they really needed to iron out the frame rate issues in general. Like if they ironed just that part of it out more, it would have felt really good. Um I also just remember the combat feeling really weird. I know some people love the combat. Like I actually, so when I first started streaming, this is 2015, pre knowing the boys here. Um, I had a guy who donated like $20 for me to go buy this game because he wanted me to stream it during my horror month, which was cool at the time. And I started playing it, and the game was like I couldn't get into the combat at all. So, and this is also the game that Joe remembers and makes fun of me for, where there
Pull
was
the
a
lever?
yeah,
Question mark?
there was a lever or a valve or something in this extremely dark cave or something. And I walked around this place basically wanting to blow my own brains out because it was so bad. And I was like, I basically was gripping the controller as hard as I could because I'm like, I have to get through it. It's a Silent Hill game. Just, all you have to do is finish it once. It's all you have to do. So you say you beat the game. And
Brad, like me and him have this little thing where I make fun of him for being bad at puzzles, and he plays Silent Hill games, and he'll struggle on a puzzle for a while, and I'll talk crap, and then eventually he's just like, "All right, Joe, what do you got?"
yeah,
I tell him, and it's like snap right to the next party. All right.
I need that. So I'm not gonna Google it. I don't want to look up like a guide and ruin it for myself. It's like,
Yeah,
all right,
can't do those.
I'd rather get help from a friend. It feels a little more natural, right? Um, but
Another fun thing about this game, it's the first Silent Hill game that doesn't have a hospital area.
mm,
And
Yeah.
it's like a theme of Silent Hill. You go to a hospital.
Yeah. There's I wish being on the road and whatnot, I don't have as much time to do the research that I wanted to for some of the games. Like I mainly focused on the first two, being that those are the two my favorites. But Downpour, I do remember though there were definitely some cool like atmospheric settings in the game that they did do pretty well. So I'll definitely give a nod to it. But I also remember hating this game and telling myself I'll never play it again. um, so unless you guys have anything else to say about this, really quickly, HD collection, we mentioned it, and it's really bad. Like
Two and
really, really
three.
bad. Don't. If you have no other way to play, I understand you don't want to pay $100 to play one of the games, but just know that they lost the voice acting for 3 completely, so they had to use brand new ones. And it's nothing to the fault of the developers because they lost the code to the game. So they basically were a relatively new, if not a brand new team, working from the ground up, trying to recreate a classic. And
Yeah.
what do you kind of expect? I feel like the game gets a lot of crap, which, hey, it does, but I blame Konami a little bit more than I do the developers because it's their. They should have given this to a studio that was a little bit more capable. That's all. Well, let's finish it out on the strongest of the series, game of the year. This one Joe actually wanted to buy off of me because it's so critically acclaimed by yours truly, and it is Silent Hill Book of Memories for the PlayStation Vita. So, as I said, we they were pushing for some reason. They wanted to just milk the crap out of Silent Hill, and by doing this, they killed it because there hasn't been a game since. And what makes more sense than to make an isometric, top-down dungeon crawling game with loot than Silent Hill? So,
It's the only way.
yeah, it's obviously a meme because of what I say, but here's the
Sign
truth.
me up.
Here's the truth. I heard about it. I've watched very little of it. I knew it wasn't a like Silent Hill game, and I'm like, you know what? This could be kind of cool. I like me some Diablo clones. Let me get my hands on this. So I decided to pull the trigger, and I literally picked up a Vita, and I was able to from the guy at the pawn shop down the road, uh, pick one up for a good price. And Joe was like, "Hey, listen, if you don't like it, I need a Vita. I'll literally pay what you paid for it." So,
And
um,
shipping, obviously. I didn't leave him hanging on that.
yeah, he loves me. So, I picked it up and first started off. I'm talking to Joe about. It. I'm like, yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, I played the first chapter, and then and it's named after some character. I don't remember it all, but it's named after some character I'm playing. And then I come to the realization, oh, there is no like the loot is literally just here's a dagger. Dagger does this much damage and it's fast. Here's a pipe. Pipe is this fast and it does this much damage, right? Then there's like a revolver, and there are little like quests that you do. So basically, um, guy pops up and is like, "Hey, if you find all of these, I think they're like artifacts or something. I don't even remember. I'll give you something at the end of the level." Uh, and you just basically are running to all the rooms, killing everything, and you pick up stuff, but the loot doesn't really matter, and the durability is really, really bad in the game. So any item that you have, it's like, oh crap, I'm gonna lose this. But does it matter? Because there's 8 million daggers and pipes all over the place, right? So I got to the 5th level of the first chapter, and I had a glitch happen where I had to do a puzzle, and you needed 6 pieces for the puzzle, and only 5 of them generated. So I literally was stuck, and I had to redo the entire level. I had to restart the Vita, and the game got so painfully dull and boring that I was like, I hate this. This isn't a Silent Hill game, and I want to sell it. The only reason why I have it is because everybody tells me, no, it's part of the Silent Hill collection, and you can't because you collect Silent Hill. I think I would actually burn the game just to protest it. It's that bad. Like, from a Diablo 2 fan, like a Diablo fan in general, and a Silent Hill fan, the game needs to die in a fire. That's all.
But
It
it was
is-
on the best handheld console ever released, the PS Vita.
I'm not even kidding. Like, it is so mediocre. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever done it. Like, when a game is so generic and mediocre, it's worse than a bad game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
Yeah.
Bad games
rather,
just have like you get the comedy aspect of it.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like Winback is amazing. 'Cause
Shut
it's
up.
so bad.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
Yeah. Anyways,
I did finish my thought here, and I actually edited to be more correct. There is one ending that's pretty unanimous across almost every Silent Hill game, excluding Silent Hill 4 and Silent Hill Downpour, that I am now convincing myself, since it's part of all of the games, it must be the true ending.
UFO.
And that's the UFO ending.
Heck
So
yeah.
basically, Silent Hill is just an alien story.
it's like that meme, aliens. The guy with the hair.
Aliens.
But I thought it was only the first 3 games, but yeah, I looked at it because I was just scrolling through my notes here to find out where I lost my train of thought from before there. And it's all of the games but the 2, which, I mean, if they're going to have a constant in the endings, that's canon.
It is.
Oh well. Anyways, anybody want to talk about this horrible game, Book of Memories?
No.
No.
I have nothing on it because I figured you would take care of it for us.
Yeah. It literally might be one of my least favorite games that I own. Not even kidding.
Well,
Which is quite the feat. Because I purchased
Let's-
Man vs. Wild specifically because we talked about how bad it was.
oh boy. Well,
And-
let's take it from a low note and end us on a high note for the video games with PT. Bravo,
Yes.
did you get a chance to watch this yet?
No, I forgot about it actually.
Every time we do a podcast episode in Spooktober, Bravo asks about PT and forgets about PT. But PT playable teaser, it was a demo that was released on the PS4. It was a Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro game that was being developed. It had no Silent Hill branding, but it was teasing a game that was called Silent Hills, as in plural. But it wasn't officially like a Silent Hill mainline game. It had Norman Reedus as your playable character. And this game never came to fruition to be a full-fledged game, although PT is massively popular, even as a demo. But it did get axed after Kojima and Konami parted ways. The game is a first-person horror experience, and you basically walk down the same hallway about 50 times, and it gets scarier and scarier. It was actually, the demo was intended to take a week to solve because some of like the puzzles were super tough to decipher, and it literally like you had to speak into a microphone and say like the girl Lisa's name a few times at certain times, and like they're like, oh, no one's gonna figure this stuff out. Well, it took somebody like 2 hours after release, and they had it beat. But
They always underestimate the players. Like, let's be real. There's always some weird puzzle. It's like, it's never gonna be found.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh wow, it was found in like 13 minutes from the release. It's like, oh, all right. Never mind.
Brad, have you played PT?
I have not, sadly. I
Have you
don't
watched
know. I've watched it, yes. I don't know anybody that owns PT. I don't know
Okay.
anything.
So
But,
I've played PT and I have I'm good with horror games. I can sit and play scary games, jump scares. Sure, I'll jump, get my heart racing.
mm,
Horror games don't bother me that much. This game messed me up to the point where I'm like curled up with a blanket up to my face. Like you would actually see in the movies that they're making fun of horror movies because this demo was very it was not okay. It was creepy and gross
as
and
weird as it sounds, too, like, just watching it, like, creeped me out. Like, to where I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can get through this. Like, it was, like, I think it's the anticipation because you just keep walking through the
and
same
like
hallway. And
and
you're
it's
like,
like little things changing and
yeah. And it's like, the thing that always gets me the most is it's a horror game. You know something's going to happen, and it's been so long. You're like, when is it happening? Where is it? It could be anywhere. And then like the more time that goes on, it's like it's gonna be that door. I gotta go through that door. I don't want to go through that door.
and then like you walk down and you see the door that's been locked the whole time is cracked open and you're like, "Oh no."
Oh yeah,
You're just
that's when
like,
you just go
"Oh."
and you're like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom quick to get this over with.
And uh-oh. But some when you play the game, like when you're physically the one playing it, it gives you that feeling of unease, like that someone's watching you.
Mhm.
Well, somebody went in and like hacked the camera of the demo and like started looking around at what was happening. The main like character, Lisa, is always watching you. No matter where you're at, she's either like standing behind you or like just watching you from and there's no way you'd ever know that without going in and like messing with the camera. But it's a feature that they designed that she's constantly watching you from somewhere in the game.
It's like as weird as it sounds. So I didn't know that because I just watched the gameplay of it. Didn't do any much research on it because obviously the game didn't come out. There's nothing really
Yeah,
to it. So it's like it is what it is. It's a cool story, but that's why we have what is that game?
that's
You know,
Stranding.
yeah, Death Stranding, the UPS simulator. Um, so that honestly, as weird as it sounds, you telling me that it's like I can imagine it. It's like it gives me almost like the chills. Like that's creepy that they could actually like do that.
It's
Uh,
weird. Why did they do it? Is the
I don't
question.
know. I'm wondering if they're. So here's what I'm wondering. So like, let's say she's behind you, right? So I'm wondering if it's something where if you knew that, if you could somehow
You
catch her,
can't.
it's not
No,
possible.
it's not possible.
So
But
then
there will be
what?
times where, like, you know how you walk towards like the end of the hallway and there's like the open area at the front door and the part where the fridge is hanging above you,
Yep.
and like there's a time where she's like standing up there watching you. Well,
Hmm.
she'll stand other places up there, like in the dark where you can't really see her, but you could like catch somewhat of an outline sometimes. But
Hmm.
yeah, any throughout the entire game from start to finish, she is watching you from
That
some
makes
point.
sense. I was thinking she'd be on like the same plane as you, like being right behind you in the hallway.
I mean, there's times where she is. But
And I'm like, well,
I'm
if
gonna
you
have to
just
see if
turn
I can find a
around,
video of it that it shows it. But yeah, if you
yeah,
turn around, she just
walks back.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so creepy.
That's funny.
She's like a cartoon character. It's like, I see me now. You don't.
But PT
Um,
is phenomenal. If you guys ever get a chance to get your hands on it, go out of the way to do it.
I definitely would like to, because being a big fan. But honestly, as weird as it sounds, like I feel like if the game had a story and you like had an active thing, but because it's like the whole point of it is to get scared. That's
I
it's
mean, it
literally just to
works.
crap yourself. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
and people like the game because it has potential, and you have a very small sliver of it. Maybe if it had been released, it might not have been as cool, but the potential is there, and like people, the PT was really fun to play. So it's cool to brainstorm and try to figure out what the heck the game would be like, and
yeah, the
Yeah,
mystery of it is like what makes you
it adds that extra layer to it.
Mhm. Probably,
But
it's funny to think. Maybe the game would have been not as
garbage. It could have
yeah,
been the next Book of Memories for all we know.
yeah. You just walk in the entire game. That was the entire game. Just walked in that one hallway for some reason,
Yeah.
and
They
just
scrap
popping up.
they scrap the teaser. They go to 800 by 600 isometric view looter shooter.
Yep.
But there are definitely games like Visage, the game I played last week for our thing, that definitely take heavy inspiration off PT and show that, there definitely is a fun game behind the concept.
For
We
sure.
just never got to see it. It would have been amazing to see a Kojima and what they could have turned that into.
Hmm.
But bravo, I'm gonna make you watch that. I don't care.
Yeah, I had it pulled up as a tab for quite a while, and then I just forgot about it.
I wouldn't mind watching it with you guys. Maybe right after this podcast.
Sign me up.
Or at some point.
Sign me
whatever.
down. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right.
But
sounds
before
good.
we talk a little bit about the movies, let's talk about some rumors that we might be seeing some new Silent Hill here in the near future.
Yeah, so there is a game actually. Here's the funny thing. Joe and I talked about this game Abandoned a long time. Like the first little teaser that I saw, it was on Twitter, and it was literally just like a shot of in first person. It looked like a very, very realistic wooded setting in the fall. Leaves are on the ground, holding the pistol aside. He's just running. And when I first saw it, I'm like, it looks pretty good. It looks like realistic. And then Joe started pointing. He's like, it looks like garbage. And there was something else included in that video. And the more you watched it, the worse it got. And I'm like, oh man, whatever. So the reason I bring that up is because there are so many rumors and people that are speculating that this game is the new Silent Hill. Because don't know if you guys know this, Konami has gone out and online they have made a post being like, hey, do you want to make a popular like a remaster or a remake of an old game? And they're mainly talking about their old arcade stuff. Contact us. We want to work with you. They want to get back into the gaming space, which makes sense because the
Chinko machines.
Yeah, well, you got to think state of the world. What happened? Casinos got hit pretty hard. You got to imagine people aren't going to the casinos from what happened.
Yeah.
And what started booming? Video games. So it makes sense. But you got to imagine. Okay, so this studio is never made a game, never done anything. No, there is no known entity that's a part of it that makes sense. But for some reason is getting full backing by PlayStation. Getting full everything from them. A lot of money, everything. Getting retweets by Hideo Kojima, getting retweets from all of these big names. The guy that does the video game awards that is slipping my mind. He even retweeted it, which he gets inside scoop stuff too. And also, this is a weird thing. So one day randomly, Norman Reedus posted a video of him on Twitter and Instagram of him dancing with the Robbie doll for 10 seconds. Which I don't know if any of you guys saw that or if I shared it with you.
No.
But
No,
it's
that's
really weird.
weird.
And it's and every time somebody's like, is it Silent Hill? No, it's not. Nope.
Yeah, there's they just no.
Then here's the other funny thing. They go, by the way, the game's not called Abandon. It starts with an S, and it's two words. Starts with an S and starts with an H. They're like Silent Hill, and they're like, no, it's not.
That's just teasing right there.
Yeah.
So I have this rule of thumb when it comes to movies, and I don't know if it applies to video games, but we'll see. But when you get big name people on the roster or influencing the movie's generally poopy, right? Because they spent all their money on big names to sell a garbage movie really fast and make a dime. We'll see if this is all hype and no train. But
There's
I
also
have
been
hopes.
some known leakers that are like pretty consistent that have released information that there is going to be a Silent Hill game releasing.
Here's the thing. It I think it makes sense because it's one of the arguably larger franchises that Konami has. I mean, they got Castlevania, and I think Castlevania and Silent Hill are probably some of the biggest ones they have, right? And it's like they've been kind of doing little things, you know what I mean? With Castlevania, like they've been slowly pumping out these like collections, right? Dipping their toe in, and they're not making it internally. It's been other teams. So it makes sense. Hey, we got this new studio. It's like a blue something. It's not Blue Point. Um and the weird thing too is like I said, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. If you could do some deep diving that a lot of people have. But like their logo, the studio logo, looks oddly similar to PlayStation Studio logo too. It's like, why is this? It just doesn't make sense. Like they're
If
backing
I'm
it so
not
much, but
mistaken, they also said they're reviving like Metal Gear. And Metal Gear and
yes.
Castlevania were the two like primary ones that the leakers said they expect. And then they said like there's a Silent Hill one that's gonna be announced, but
So
they
the
don't have
metal
exacts.
part of the rumors were it's Blue Box Game Studios, by the way. Um, Part of the rumors were that Blue Point Studios were going to remake Metal Gear Solid 1 because they actually remade they did the Metal Gear Solid collection on PS3. But I I don't know, is the Bloodborne thing confirmed or is that a rumor?
I'm not sure. I believe it's just a rumor.
Okay. So, yeah. Um anyways, it's a as I said, there's a lot to it, a lot to unpack. I think it's kind of cool. I really hope that something comes from it, at least, because I would love to see a PS5
Oh,
Silent
dude,
Hill
give me a
version.
PS5 remake of the original like trilogy of Silent Hills.
hmm That's all you
Don't
need.
change anything, but like reskin it. Oh my goodness. Or even go like the RE2 route.
They could do if they could do a like collection of Silent Hill 1 through 3, like the correct way, which I know would be very hard, but give it to an actual good studio. I mean, that's just free money, baby. Like easy money.
We know Nintendo listens. Let's hope Konami listens.
Well, I mean, the sad thing is you'd want to give to Blue Point because they do
They,
so good.
oh, they did
So good.
ridiculous. I really, really hope it turns out true that Blue Point is making Bloodborne 2.
hmm Anyways, I think we're beating that into a dead horse kind of thing. And I'm not going to get my hopes up. I still am just going to tell myself that Silent Hill is dead because I think it's easier to accept than to sit here and dream. Because every time there's any direct or anything, I'm always like, Silent Hill. Oh, disappointed again. Oh,
Just
just
this
absolutely
this is
crushed.
the time that they're gonna announce it.
Yep. Just can't do it.
But
Anyways,
talk a little bit about the movies.
yeah, we'll finish that up with the movies. So, the first movie is called Silent Hill. I actually just watched this probably about 6 months ago with my wife.
I watched this 2 days ago.
Hmm. So,
I was in the
what are we
mood.
feeling?
I love these movies. I think they are some of, if not the best video game to movie adaptations out there. I know the second one is not as universally liked as the first, but the movies are amazing. They set the tone really well. It's a little awkward with a female protagonist based off of what's supposed to be the first game, but I think outside of that, the casting was pretty good. The scripting in the first movie was really good. The soundtrack is phenomenal. And I really liked how they did the fog effects, and I thought it looked really good. And, I don't have much more to say outside of I love the first one. I
Mhm.
personally like the setting of the second one. What is it, Revelation? A
Yes.
little bit more, but yeah, these movies are phenomenal. Sean Bean, I didn't realize was in it until I just watched it 2 days ago, and I was just like, "Oh God, he's gonna die."
I really like the movies. Of course, this is my first. The Silent Hill was my first ever like cross into the Silent Hill world, and I'm pleasantly surprised that the game games and the movie have so much similar to them, because it seems like the movie takes from multiple games, but it's not bad. Like I like Pyramid Head is amazing in the movie, and the little creatures are amazing, and some of the death scenes, it was so good.
The one I think the standout one is when Pyramid Head rips the skin off of
Oh
that
yes.
woman
Oh
in
yeah,
one piece.
yeah, is absolutely
It's
disgusting.
yeah, it's real
Hmm.
oh rough.
I want to actually
Also,
try to find a like a behind the scenes kind of like documentary or something of how they made it,
mhm.
because it's been a little while for me for watching the movie, but I have a pretty good memory for movies. But like, there's one scene where the guy's like crawling on the ground, and he's like contorted by like chains and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that's just like a dude actually like contorted in that way. It's not like prosthetics or
Mhm.
anything. So stuff like that. I like to see how they did it. Like, oh yeah, we used high C for all the blood or whatever. Cool stuff like that.
The the other death that really was like pretty brutal was when Sybil Bennett dies and she just burns.
Yeah.
It's like actually pretty gross. Like for a 2006 movie, you got to think it's pretty old nowadays, right? And it's like still gross to this day. But I mean, realistically, there's not much to add from what Joe said. Like, really, I think this might be the best video game adaptation for a movie.
I
Or,
also one thing like that I love about this movie is how they made Alessa, like Dark Alessa, look in the
Mhm.
movie. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, just I think that what I like about it is they didn't just, I understand, some people might be thrown off by like, oh, Pyramid Head is in it. Doesn't make sense. But it's like they pulled enough from the games to be like, okay, you got your fan service for the people that like the games, but like put it this way, my wife like loves the Silent Hill movie.
My
Like where
mom loves the Silent Hill movies.
so like they did very well with it. Like that alone shows like somebody who knows nothing about the games, nothing about video games in general, watching a video game, based movie and is like, wow, this is an awesome horror movie. It it's something I think that deserves definitely like a little bit of an applause to the director of it.
Absolutely. They definitely stayed true. And I hope the new Resident Evil movies could hold up in the same fashion.
Me too. Me too, definitely.
But enough
Well,
with Silent Hill. Silent Hill Revelation came out during the 3D movie craze. Have you guys both watched that one as well?
yep, I watched this one about maybe 2 months ago or so, also with the wife.
I
Um,
don't think I've watched it.
obviously didn't see it in 3D, but um, I did see it.
Okay. Well, bravo. If you haven't watched it, we're gonna.
Yeah.
It's more directly based on Silent Hill 3. It follows Heather's story and through the amusement park, and it's I'd say more true to the game
Yes.
than the first movie, but scripting was definitely not the strongest point. But the movie was insane with the effects they had, and I thought they did well with the 3D effects, even though that 3D thing was beat into the ground real quick with movies at the time.
Mm.
But
I
I loved the theme park.
let me basically describe, in my opinion, why the movie is so. Movie does not have a good rap. This one does not.
No.
And here is my reasoning for it. They tried to stuff about an 8 hour to 10 hour game into an hour and 30 minutes. And it's very, like, it feels like you're on crack. Like, they move through things so fast. Like, the entire time, my wife and I were just like, what is going on? Like, I understood, like, because I'm like Joe said, very, very true to Silent Hill 3, which is awesome. But they just start whipping through this game, the story of this game
Yeah,
so
if
fast.
you
They're
didn't
like,
play the game first, you can't follow it.
yeah, it's all over the place. She had so many questions. They're just like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, there was a lot of that whenever I watched it with like family as well. They would just like pause. Joe, did I miss something? No, they just skipped something. This
Mm.
is what happens.
Yeah, I
But
remember specifically saying, like, to her, I'd be like, they skipped like very essential things. Like, they shouldn't have done that, but what are you gonna do? I'm sure their budget wasn't high. They couldn't. They only had so much to work with.
I still
But
think the movie good for what it is. As a fan of the game,
yeah,
a little bit harder to watch if you're not a fan of the game.
yeah, I would say it's definitely true. If you're a fan of the game, you like them, you want to collect stuff like that, definitely worth at least one time through. You will want to watch the first one over again. First one's really good. The second one, probably like a one and done. Wouldn't surprise me, but
Yeah,
Joe
as
seems
a
to like it a little bit more.
fan of Silent Hill 3's game more than some of the others, I personally think the movie's pretty strong. I'm not going to argue. Plot holes out the wazoo, and
I think it's
definitely
just
sped
that.
along.
Just like a video game, am I right, boys?
Yeah, just to me, a little too chaotic in the
Yeah,
story.
for
That's
sure.
all.
It just has like those scenes to me that are super memorable. So, for instance, the Alessa merry-go-round fight, and that's like my favorite point of Silent Hill for like boss fights, and they nail it.
Mm.
And the actress who plays Heather, I think, looks very similar, and it's just good overall. I definitely would watch through it again, and probably will in the next couple days.
Anyways, I think that was a lot. Bravo. Give us your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Silent Hill is not so silent in this week's episode of Envision Gaming as we leave no stone unturned. That was great. I liked it. I like listening to you guys talk about the game. I learned a whole lot that I didn't even learn from what I looked up. I didn't even I didn't even know really about the spin-off games, which was a mishap on my part, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't actually. they're good games. I'm probably gonna skip 4, but I do plan on watching or playing through 2 and 3.
One game I noticed we forgot that is canon.
Hmm?
There is a pachinko machine for Silent Hill that
Oh, baby.
Konami has stated is canon.
Yeah, my soul hurts. As a fan, my soul hurts. But going off of what Bravo said, I 110% recommend, like, find somebody who is very knowledgeable of the games that can, like, explain things. So there's Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a guy. I don't know if he does a full playthrough or not, but he has this like super in-depth dive of like just one specific area. Um the Historical Society in Silent Hill 2, and it's super cool to watch. Like, it's like an hour and a half of him just like diving in, telling you these little details and what they ended up doing in the game. So if you could find a playthrough where they, are a little bit knowledgeable, they could give you some behind the details, so you're not like just listening to the gameplay, because as I said, it's not 100% straightforward. I think that could be the best way to experience it for somebody who's probably not going to drop $100 for it.
What are your final thoughts, Joe?
I adore Silent Hill. I might not love all of the games, but the ones I do, I hold at a very high regard. In particular, like I said, the first one is my favorite, third one is second favorite, and those two are easily within my top 20 games of all time. And I think if you have a way to get your hands on them, they're a must play for any video game fan. Whether you're a horror fan or not, I feel like they're staple in gaming culture. Movies, definitely worth a watch. And let's hope and pray we get a new Silent Hill game.
And on that note, we will end this episode. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoy Silent Hill as much as these two guys do. I enjoyed basically listening to them this whole time. If you'd like to hear more of my voice, perhaps jump back a couple episodes. I'm a talker. You can hit us up on Twitter at envision_org. You can email us at envisiongamingpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you can comment right under the YouTube video. And we respond to every comment and really enjoy watching this community grow. Thanks for listening.